Thank you for taking the Taming the Wild Part 1 webinar. In this class, we will be covering how to minimize unwanted misbehaviors in the classroom. This class is worth 2 DCDEE credits. We will start with some quick housekeeping for the class. Make sure you have submitted all of your registration information via email. During this class, you need to have a paper and pencil ready for note-taking. You also have a few assignments that you have to submit that are during the PowerPoint that you watch. You will need to submit a photo or a Word document of your answers to some of these questions. In order to ensure participants understand the content, you will take a short quiz at the end of this class as well. For in-person classes, please make sure to update your teacher information card. Since this isn't an in-person class, you have submitted that registration information prior to taking this class, but if anything has changed, like what school you work at, what age group you're working with, please send me an email and let me know that. You can also turn closed captioning on while watching this video if you don't want to listen to my voice. You're welcome to. There's also some options to listen to this in another language. Let me know if you need help with that. You have been emailed a post-survey assessment. It's a SurveyMonkey link. It's also shown here on the screen. You have to complete that. That is required for you to receive credit for this class. It's also used for attendance verification. The post survey will not take you more than 5 minutes, but again, remember that this survey is your verification of attendance for this class. During this Taming the Wild training, we will cover causes of misbehavior, also known as the wild in the classroom, ways to set up a calming environment to avoid conflict before it starts, provocations, what they are and how they deter misbehavior, ways to have positive parent communication about behaviors, and we will also cover transitions and how they can become easier. In order to make sure you receive all of this content, you have to participate in both Part 1 and Part 2 of Taming the Wild. All right, so we are going to get right into it. We're talking about misbehaviors today and how to stop them. 3 causes of misbehavior are craving attention, want to avoid work and class, and seeking power. These things can look very different depending on the age group you're working with in early childhood. When a child is craving attention, these children are ones who are constantly speaking out without permission in school, maybe not standing in line if it's, say, a 3-year-old class. For a toddler, this could be something like throwing their food on the floor during meal times. Wanting to avoid classwork would be when a group of children rarely complete their schoolwork or expectations in the classroom, and they're instead looking for distractions to avoid work altogether. In an early childhood classroom, this would look like a child not sitting during circle time and doing something completely different. They want to build blocks at circle time. Or during center play, the child wants to not share or possibly bite or take a toy that another child's playing with. Seeking power. Children who seek power are individuals that need to argue and are not afraid of confrontations with adults. So children in early childhood rooms need to understand that the adult is in charge. And this is something that you really need to think about because you don't want to appear intimidating to a child, but children need to know that the adult in the room makes the boundaries and that the boundaries are set to keep them safe. It's important to remember that these impulses for children under the age of 5 are actually oftentimes very natural urges that we need to be creative to help them avoid. So we've looked at 3 natural causes to misbehavior, but now we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we are going to look at why they misbehave in the classroom sometimes. So we will first look at the philosopher Abraham Maslow. He has a theory that breaks down what stops a human, any age, from reaching their fullest potential. We're going to apply this theory then to children in our classrooms. So Abraham Maslow lived from 1904 to 1970. He was born in New York City, and when he passed, he was residing in California. He was an American psychologist and philosopher, best known for his self-actualization theory of psychology. I personally learned this theory as a college student. I was a 2-year-old teacher at the time, and this theory helped me so much because it really gets to the core of why children misbehave, and it gave me a way to kind of self-reflect and step back from the misbehavior and look at the why. We're going to go into this a little bit in detail in the next slide. Maslow's theory of self-actualization includes a hierarchy of needs theory. And his reasoning is that behind everything we do as humans is to satisfy a need. We have instincts that keep us alive and continue our species. His hierarchy of needs includes basic physiological needs, so like food and water, a need for safety, a need for love and affection. We actually need love and affection as human beings. We want to have self-esteem. It's a need. And finally, we have a need for satisfying our full potential. It's actually a basic human instinct to want to do better. This is Maslow's pyramid. This is a great visualization of how these tiers work. At the very bottom are basic needs. But the great thing about this theory is you can't move to the next tier of psychological needs until you've met the basic needs. You can't feel love and safety unless you are fed and warm. You can't meet your self-fulfillment needs until you've met your psychological needs. And this is really important to understand and apply in an early childhood classroom. So at the very bottom of that pyramid, your foundation are basic needs. In order to reach a child's full potential, basic needs must be met first. Basic needs include sleep, food, nutrition, water, and warmth. I put nutrition with food because, you know, a cupcake for breakfast might not be nutritious. So they may simply be having the wrong types of food for breakfast. So it's really important to have open communication with parents and to have some knowledge about what proper nutrition is. Do you have a way to communicate with parents to discuss sleep patterns and eating habits? A parent survey is a great way to do this. This could be online or a paper version that you send home maybe at the beginning, middle, and end of a school year. Or what's even better is a face-to-face discussion with parents. Like if you have a toddler class, you should maybe ask the parent every day, when's the last time they ate and what did they eat? When it comes to water, do you offer water at certain times throughout the day? Because you should. Toddlers don't have words yet. They might not be able to tell you, I'm thirsty. A preschool child that just played outside for an hour might not be able to recognize the feeling for thirst. So as adults in these classrooms, we need to offer it. Warmth is an interesting one because this could go both ways. In order for you to feel comfortable, you need to feel warm, which means not too hot and not too cold. The water could come into play there as well. Is your room a comfortable temperature for playing actively? Is it too hot to be playing in centers with 4 other children present without getting overheated? Or is it too chilly to not still wear your jacket when you walk in the classroom? I've been in a lot of schools that the classroom is kind of unbearably cold, even for me, and I don't take my jacket off when I walk in the room. Oftentimes, when a child is brought into a classroom, the parent takes their jacket off and the child's really not allowed to put that jacket back on. They might be cold, so think about things as simple as temperature when you are having misbehaviors with a child. Does your outdoor space have an area for shade where they can go cool off for a minute? Anybody can get irritable from too much heat. Are the children dressed appropriately for weather conditions? This is a parent's responsibility before the child comes into the classroom. But realistically, as the adult caring for the child, we should have something available, even if the child is dropped off without a jacket, or if the child is dropped off with clothes that are too warm for the day. You might have a parent that drops their child off at 6:30 in the morning, and at 6:30 in the morning, it was cold outside. But by 2:30 in the afternoon, it's 85 degrees. That child should not be wearing a sweatshirt and long pants. Yes, you can have a conversation with the parent at the end of the day to maybe bring a change of clothes, but for that day, you shouldn't bring the child out in that outfit. You should maybe have an alternate pair of clothes to put the child in. You should make sure the child feels comfortable if you want to avoid misbehaviors. Safety and security is second from the bottom on the pyramid. This is really important to be compassionate about. Childcare can be stressful and even downright scary to children coming in. They're leaving their parents, they're vulnerable to their peers. Another 2-year-old might be slightly unpredictable to that 2-year-old coming in the room, and they might remember that Joe took their toy yesterday or hit them yesterday. And even if you redirected that behavior, that child needs to be comforted to feel safe, that you're going to be there for them if it happens again. Children have no choice in whether they stay there or when they go home. So sometimes they are there against their will. They wanted to stay home and sleep a little bit more. It's not up to them. So please remember to be considerate of the child's feelings. They might not feel comfortable in their surroundings, especially if they're new to the room. They might not know where to go to finish crying it out. They might not even know what adult to go to yet if they're new to receive comfort. So just remember all of these things when you're trying to provide safety and security in the classroom for your children. In order to help the children in your room feel safe and secure, you should be warm and inviting at drop-off. This includes having a relationship with the family. If a parent trusts you, the child will trust you. Have a cozy area, or maybe two, where the child can escape or decompress if they are upset after drop-off. Be flexible with allowing children to use comfort items like a blanket or a toy that they are familiar with until they're ready to participate in class activities. If a child gets dropped off every day with a blanket, and it's against your classroom rules to walk around with a blanket from home, don't pull it from them right away. Give them a safe, sanitary spot that they can hold that blanket and put it away when they're ready. Work on building a relationship between you and the child, especially when a child is new to your class. Find time to do something one-on-one with that child and show them you care about their feelings. Also, it's really important to remember, do not rush the process of a child gaining trust or feeling sad about their parent leaving. This is really difficult for children. Caregivers should be patient with the process. The next two tiers include the child's psychological needs. These include belongingness and love and esteem. Under belongingness and love, think about these questions. Does the child feel like they belong in the classroom? Do they feel loved in the classroom? Make sure you are excited for the child to arrive. This can be difficult, especially when the child exhibits behaviors often. But fake it until you make it and watch how it changes them. This can be hard to not show that sense of maybe stress or disappointment when the child that you know has been really aggressive or has been biting in the classroom when they show up. Don't look inconvenienced to this child though. If you want them to feel like they belong in that classroom, you make sure you put on a smile when they show up at your door, even if you feel like it, or even if you don't feel like it, make sure you put that smile on. Another thing to think about is, does the child have a space they can call their own? Do they have a cubby with their name on it, maybe a picture for younger children? Do they have a place to store their personal belongings? The second part of the psychological needs is esteem, which includes self-esteem for the child. Do you show pride in the student's accomplishments? Do you display their artwork where they can see it? Do they receive praise for their good works? Do you take pictures of them to highlight cute moments to share with their parents? What do you say about the child at the end of the day to their parents? Is it negative or positive? These children are listening. Self-actualization is at the very top of the pyramid of human needs. Children actually need to reach this level. But what does this look like in an early childhood classroom? Your goals as a teacher should look different for each child. It also depends heavily on the age group you teach. Maybe Sally will stop crying. Maybe Phil will start sharing. Maybe Angela will stop biting. Maybe Ryder will start interacting with his peers and making friends. This happens when the child has the ability to understand the rules and boundaries of the classroom. This happens when the child is comfortable enough in the classroom to participate in group time and/or creative activities like art time and organized games. Now you will be able to help a child focus on not repeating unwanted behaviors like biting or taking toys or even destructive behaviors. It is important to remember that self-actualization cannot happen until all of the other needs are met. Now we've reached your part where you're going to need that paper and pencil that I told you at the beginning of the class to pull out. You can pause this video if you need to while you answer the questions. It's very important that you either take a picture if you're using paper and pencil. You could also put these in a Word document and email them to me. Either way is fine, whatever's easiest, as long as I get them. So part one of this assignment that I want you to do is to think about the children in your classroom and what needs they have that fall into each category of this pyramid. Rewind just a little bit and look at that pyramid and make a list of needs that children in your classroom, based on their age, have that fall into each category. Write as many as you can on the top half of your paper. Part two is I want to know what examples you have seen of these needs not being met for children in your classrooms. whether it's something you feel like the parent is responsible for, or the director is responsible for, or you as a teacher are responsible for. Write down as many of these needs as you can on the bottom half of the sheet. Can you notice a connection between any children who have unmet needs and the children who exhibit undesirable behaviors? Oftentimes, when you do this exercise, you're able to make a connection with the child that has unmet needs. They're the ones that are having the misbehaviors. Part 3 of this activity. On a new piece of paper, I want you to come up on your own solutions that are within your control to help these needs be met. If you can't come up with solutions, you can actually write that as your answer. I don't know how to help this child have these needs be met. And we can discuss that by email or in the next class. In your classroom, try not to focus on the problems. Train your mind to focus on the possible solutions. When your class is getting really loud and crazy and you don't know how to pull them back in, don't focus on what's going wrong. Focus on possible solutions. So those solutions that you just created from the last slide, that little assignment I just gave you, that's all I want you to keep from that activity. You can rip up and throw away your examples of unmet needs. The only thing I want you to keep for yourself are the solutions so that you can use them in your classroom. We want all of our students to meet their full potential. In our classroom, we need to make sure needs are met. Food is offered when it's needed. Lunch should not be 45 minutes late. That will cause misbehaviors. Diapering should be done when needed. That child doesn't feel comfortable if their diaper isn't changed. Children should feel safe. There should be a predictability of routine. This includes flexibility, though. Your daily schedule should not be too rigid. Go with what the children are enjoying. Pay attention to the environment of the classroom. Make sure it's predictable, but not too firm. Your environment should also influence creativity. New activities should be offered, and children should always have new opportunities to explore. Take a really good look at this classroom. To me personally, I think a lot of what I see in this classroom is meeting 5-star criteria, which is a goal we all tend to reach for. But I want you to really think about this classroom and identify some things that might be going wrong here. You're going to need that pen and paper again, and I'm going to need evidence that you answered these questions. But using the picture on the previous slide, answer these questions for me. What was maybe overstimulating about this classroom? What would happen once you added a group of children to this classroom? Imagine what the noise level of this classroom would be. Is it loud? Is it quiet? Do you think a connection can be made between the environment of the classroom and the behaviors of the children present? Creating a calming space, addressing our own needs before coming to work, and understanding the child's needs are the first steps of taming the wild of your classroom. We'll discuss more approaches to calming spaces in part 2 of this course. I just want your brain to start thinking right now of how important it is the way you set up your classroom. Are the colors really bright? Do you have good natural light? Do you use lamp lighting when children tend to get too loud? Overhead lights can be really stimulating to children. Cutting those big ceiling lights off and just using lamp lighting for a little bit could be really calming. And that's a lot easier than raising your voice and telling children to be quiet. I am now taking you on a virtual field trip. In your email, you have received this link to YouTube. This is what I would call a model classroom. Watch this video and take note of 3 things that make this model classroom feel calm and inviting. I want you to write these things down, add them to your homework notes to show that you've watched the video, and then take these notes and think about how you can apply them in your own classroom. We will talk about this more in part 2 of this training. These questions are really just for self-reflection. You don't have to write these ones down unless you want to. But think about what was calm and inviting about the classroom in the video. What can you change in your classroom to change the overall tone? What are some differences between the first classroom and the second one shown? Now we've made it to your homework assignment for part 1 of Taming the Wild. I'm calling this one a homework assignment because I want you to go a little slower with this one, not just take a few notes and take a picture and send it to me really quick. I want real thought put into this one. This pyramid that we covered can also apply to you as a teacher or as an individual. I want you to think about 3 things for yourself from the pyramid that are not being met. Identify 3 solutions for meeting your needs. And I want you to answer these 2 questions. Are you reaching your greatest potential as a teacher if your own needs are not being met? How can you make an effort to make sure your needs are met before you enter the classroom? So I'll give you an example so you know what I'm looking for. You come into work in the morning, but you woke up 45 minutes before your shift starts, and you have a 30-minute commute. You got up, you brushed your hair, you brushed your teeth, you look good, but when you walk into the classroom and you're greeting students, you haven't had breakfast yet, you haven't drank any water, you haven't had your morning coffee, you're waiting for your morning break to go get it. The solution to this would be doing these things before you get to the classroom, because the problem is you didn't show up to work ready to give these children your all because you still have unmet needs. You haven't had breakfast yet. You haven't taken a few moments to yourself to have your mood be ready, to have your nutritional needs be met. This is just one example of how a teacher might not have their needs met in the classroom. But I want you to be really open and honest and think about what you could be doing differently to maybe be a better teacher and to meet your self-actualization in the classroom. I want you to remember that as teachers, you simply cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of you to be your best for the children in your classroom. Once I receive your homework, you will then get a link to a SurveyMonkey. This survey is different than the first one you took because now you're going to review the content that was given to you within this class. These results are completely anonymous. We don't know who filled them out. And they are required for you to receive credit for this class. So make sure you do this. If you need a new link, let me know. If you have any questions about the homework assignment, go ahead and shoot me an email. Once you have completed and submitted all of your homework for Taming the Wild Part 1, You will then receive a link for Taming the Wild Part 2. You will probably have to go through this slide more than once to get all of the homework assignments and the questions to make sure you did it thoroughly. But I made this video short so that you do watch it more than once. It does take a few times to go through the content of this training to really get it all, because I gave you a lot of information very quickly. So please feel free to rewind this and start again so that you can complete your homework assignment thoroughly.